Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP, and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We are spending the hour with my guest, Pastor Glenda Sutton, the founder and CEO of Nashville's Family Affair Ministries. Starting this nonprofit was its own affair. It was more than a leap of faith. It was really a pivot when a first leap didn't go as planned. And now she stands as one of the fiercest advocates Nashville's ever seen. Pastor Glenda Sutton, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Wow, Blake, thank you. I was listening and going, wow, who's he talking about?
I'm your hype man. Before we go back, because the point of having you in here for this profile interview really is to get your story, because you're so good at telling the story of others. So there was this time before you were a minister and an advocate. In fact, you were in a tower working as an air traffic controller. I think it was in Florida. I certainly have known about you, but did not know this piece of your story until prepping for this. So tell us about those before times. Who was that Glenda Gleaves?
Absolutely. Well, I left home. I'm from St. Joseph, Louisiana, a little town in northeast Louisiana. At the age of 17, I left home. I had a scholarship in journalism.
Journalism?
Yep. I was going to go to the NLU, Northeast Louisiana University. And 2 weeks before going to NLU, I enlisted in the Air Force. I went to the United States Air Force.
So you were going to college and suddenly said, nah, I'm going to go into the armed services.
Yes.
Wow.
And the reason was I wanted to travel from a little cotton town, and I didn't see an opportunity to be able to travel or to do anything other than go to college and then go to work or go back home. And I knew that my uncle was in the Air Force, and I knew that he had a very amazing career. And whenever he came home in his dress blues, and he looked so good in it, I loved the uniform. And his daughter, who was my age, she had traveled. She'd been to Holland, Amsterdam. They'd been in Europe. They'd gone different places I'd only ever read about. And I said, well, if I go to the Air Force, maybe I can travel too. And the desire of my heart was to go to Italy, because I'd read in a Harlequin romance that my grandma had about a place called Brindisi, Italy. And I always wanted to go there and write a story. So I enlisted in the Air Force, go to basic training in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, then go to tech school in Pensacola, Florida, the Naval Academy. And while I'm in tech school, you get to choose they give you 5 choices of places to go where your career field is. And my first career field was I was a telecommunications operator. I copied Morse code, diddy-da-da did.
All right.
And so one of the places, they had listed 5 bases you could choose from it. And one of the bases was in Italy. And so
it's destined.
And you select 5 places. And then they determine where you're going. Well, the one they chose for me was Italy. And my base was San Vito Air Station in Brindisi, Italy.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, so you got to go. Don't know if you wrote that story, but
writing it.
Writing it now. All right. So you come back, and I suppose when you get out of the Air Force, you take those skills into the civilian world?
No. So while in the Air Force in Brindisi, Italy, this is where my faith journey starts. So I encountered this young man, and it's so funny, Blake, sitting here talking to you, looking at you, because you look a lot like the young man who led me to Jesus. His name was Craig Williams, in the Air Force.
So you're saying that you just didn't grow up this way, or was you finding your own faith?
Yes, finding my own faith. I grew up on Easter and Christmas. We went to church, and with your new outfit. That was the thing.
Yeah.
And but I didn't grow up with. I grew up with the religion. Yeah. I didn't grow up with the relationship. I didn't have a faith. I had what my grandma had, what my mama had. I had whatever the community had, and you did. That's what I grew up with. But I didn't have a relationship. It wasn't mine. I guess I grew up with borrowed. So while in Italy, in San Vito, Italy, in Brindisi, I encountered Craig Williams. Craig was an amazing believer. I didn't know what a believer was. It was just like that. I knew I went to church. I didn't know what a believer was, and I didn't know what the word fellowship meant. And this is important. So we worked swings, mids, and evenings. What are they? Swing shifts. One afternoon in the swing shift, which was 2 to 10, Craig comes by and he said, Glenda Ellis, my maiden name. He said, Jesus loves you. I said, yeah, I know. I didn't know. And he would always come by and he'd invite me to come go. He'd always invite me to go to Bible study or something. And I always had a reason why I couldn't, because I didn't want to, and I thought he was square. And so I just didn't want to. And I was
the person who reminds you of me.
Well, no. He became my best friend. So this went on for a while. One evening, swing shift, he came by. He said, hey, Glenda, a group of us from Baker Flight, which is the flight I worked on, we're getting together after work, 10 o'clock, and we're going to go hang out and fellowship. Would you like to come with us? So with my lightning fast brain, I think, yes, maybe if I go with him to do this, he'll stop inviting me to go to Bible study.
Shut him up, okay.
Right. So he said, yeah, we just grab some chips or soda or something. Everybody's going to bring something. Just grab something. So, Blake, I'm thinking I'm going to a party because I knew party life. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking I'm going to a party. And then maybe, because all the people I knew, even who went to church and everything, they partied.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this. He'll stop inviting me to go to a Bible study. I get there, and I walk into this room, and it was at the NCO quarters. I get there, and I got my chips and some sodas, and I walk in there, and all these people there in jeans and T-shirts. And so, first of all, I was overdressed. I was dressed for a party. Everybody was kind of laid back. And I go in there, and I set my chips and things down. And then they say, hey, we're going to, this white gentleman in jeans and T-shirt, Pastor Dale, says we're going to break open, before we eat natural food, we're going to break open the Word, and we're going to eat from there. All of this is foreign to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, what is he talking about? So we go through the night. We get through that. And I'm sitting there listening, and I'm watching people who are talking to each other and people who are talking about this book, this Bible, as though it's real. And they are talking as though they have a relationship with each other, and they're talking like this is a part of their life. And I'm thinking, what in the world's wrong with them? Mm-hmm. So, long story short, I come back, and I'm starting to think, wait a minute, this may be real. Mm. And so I began to develop my own faith. I started reading the book, and I started finding out that this wasn't about religion for me. It was about knowing that there was an opportunity to be something that I didn't think I ever had access to. I didn't know that there was a passage that said I was made in the image and likeness of God. I didn't know that God had a personal interest in me. I only thought he was interested in me being there on Christmas and Easter. Didn't know that there was an opportunity for that. And I love the word opportunity. So I leave Italy and go to my next duty assignment because I cross-trained. And when I cross-trained into airfield management, it takes me to Florida. Okay. While in Florida, I'm assigned to work with, my job was to work with F-16 and F-4 and A-10 pilots. They were the ones in the control tower who would bring in, it was a bombing range, so they trained pilots for combat. That's where they trained.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're with Pastor Glenda Sutton this hour, a fierce advocate for families in East Nashville. Today we're focused on her story rather than all those that she has helped and encouraged through the decades. So you're an air traffic controller in Florida, and then, I don't know.
On a bombing range.
On a bombing range. And then, you decide to get out of that tower. How do you end up in Nashville?
I didn't decide to get out of the tower. The tower kicked me out.
Okay.
Here's what happens. One day in the middle of a flight, we were waiting for MacDill Air Force Base to get there, and they were late. And I'm sitting there, and I'm in my natural life, I was in a fight for my life. I had been in domestic violence, and I was married. I'd gotten married in the military, and I was being abused. So I was going through a fight for my life, had recently returned to work because I'd been beaten.
Really?
And the right side of my face and the left side of my face didn't look the same.
Are you saying that you had taken time off because it was that obvious?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So I'd been out of the tower for several weeks, and I was devastated. Well, during that time, I made a decision that it was time to get out of that relationship, and I'd filed for divorce. As a matter of fact, it had been so bad that I had to leave my home, and they sheltered me on base in one of the housing places. And at this time I had children, me and my 2 little boys.
Yeah.
And so during the course of time, I'm separated. When I've come back to work, I've got this restraining order. I'm separated from my now ex-husband, and I'm in the tower, and I'm sitting there thinking, I hate family. Family is not a good thing.
It's not been good to you.
Not been good to me, and I'm trying to do it right. So now I'm reading this book, the Bible. I'm doing the right things. I'm following the rules. First one in my family who'd been married, my mother was 14 years older than me. So my mom.
Oh my.
Yeah, my mom had never been married, and me and my siblings all had different dads. So I'm trying to do it right? And I'm in this place where I've been abused. I just get back to work. I'm in the tower waiting for a flight to get there. In between flights, I'm doodling on a flight plan. And I doodled the word family affair. Now, Blake, how old are you?
I have to think about that sometimes, but I'm 42.
Okay. Are you old enough to remember a sitcom that came on years ago called Family Affair?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, let me tell you.
Okay.
There's a sitcom that came on called Family Affair. And it was Uncle Bill, Buffy, Jody, Sissy, Mr. French, and the Miss Beasley doll.
All right, you're getting nods behind you in the studio, so
Okay.
even if I may not be tracking, I'm with you.
All right. So I am sitting there. I doodle on the flight plan, Family Affair, because in high school, I would run home in the afternoons to watch this sitcom because this was a perfect family. Now, I grew up in a family where I told you my mama was 14 years older than me. My mom had just gone back to school, had just gotten her GED and was gone to nursing school. So now, and I had 2 younger siblings, so I'm the big sister. So I'm the sissy, the big sister like in the sitcom. And I've got this younger brother and a younger sister that I'm taking care of. No daddy, no father figure, had never had a father in the home. And so I watched this sitcom, and I lived through that sitcom because they were the perfect family. Uncle Bill was the perfect dad. Mr. French, who was the housekeeper, well, I wanted a mama just like that.
Yeah.
Who's he? He's the maid. Do you like kids? I don't think so.
And I wanted me and my sister and my brother to be like those children. So I would watch it all the time. Didn't realize.
You're mid-20s at this point or something,
oh my goodness,
right?
25, 26 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a child watching this.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But I remembered what I watched as a child.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, so I'm in the tower now, and I'm thinking, why am I thinking about this? Because I hadn't thought about that for a long time. I'm in the place in my life, Blake, where my family has just been devastated. Everything that I thought or believed or had come to know about family had just been shattered. And I'm thinking about this show where family looked perfect. And I'm going, and I'm angry now. I'm angry with this God that I found, that I've gotten this faith in. And I want nothing to do with God, nothing to do with family. I'm just going to protect my 2 little boys that I have, and I'm just going to live. I'd been married for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to live. And so in the midst of this, I sit there on with a flight plan, and I'm doodling on the back of it. And I begin drawing out I see these people have a vision, if you will. And I see these 2 groups of people. The first group of people, their face was hard and their hearts were hardened. And they were in this line, and they looked like they were marching. They're doing a military term called mocking time, where you look like you're marching, but you're going nowhere.
Right.
And their faces were hard. They just looked mean. And to me, that represented religion, or it represented looking like it was doing something and nothing was happening.
Yeah.
Because now you got to understand, I was in the midst of growing in my faith. And I was going to church, and I was going to a place where they knew I was being abused. I went for counseling. I went to my pastor. I went to people, and I'm saying, these things are happening, and they're telling me, well, just pray, it's going to be all right.
Yeah, I see.
No one was encouraging me to get out. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I thought, or I felt that if I left the marriage, if I got out, that God wouldn't love me anymore, that I would be violating everything. So I stayed.
Because divorce, I assume, in your church was frowned upon.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It was. And so I stayed and I stayed and I stayed until I could no longer take it. So I decided that day in the control tower, while I'm sitting there drawing, and that's where I see the first group of people, and it represented church. And I had church hurt. So I didn't want the church anymore because I figured, well, if I get free, they don't want me anymore. I'm no longer good. That's what I was being led to believe. So I decided, okay, I'm done with this and I'm done with that. So I see a second group of people. I'm sitting there doodling on a flight plan. And the second group of people I see in this line, their face was broken like my face. And their hearts were broken like my heart. And I saw people coming and getting the second line, Blake. They were black, they were white, they were rich, they were poor. It's like I could see where people were coming from. I saw them coming out of housing communities, from under bridges, out of doctors' offices. I saw them coming from everywhere. I think God was showing me people everywhere have hurt, right? Mm. And I saw the second group of people, and it looked like they had shackles on their wrists and around their ankles, but they were trying to move slowly. Well, now I'm sitting there in a tower 72 feet off the ground, and nothing's in front of me but sky. And I am having this, you can call it what you want it.
Yeah, let's call it a vision.
Let's call it a vision. And I began to see the people in the second line that were broken, that were hurting, but they were moving towards something. And they got to this door, but there had been no door. This door was created. And I saw these people slowly going to the door. As they went in the door, they would go, and someone behind the desk or in this place, it was like a little center. I'll call it a family center. And they went in, and the person there didn't say anything, just pointed. The people coming in said what their need was. The person at the desk pointed, and a door was created. This happened until all the people in the line were in, and there were doors. When all these doors were filled, it made a picture of a cross. And I heard God speak to my heart. I heard him speak to me on the inside and say, everything that the family needs is at the cross. Show them. I didn't know what that meant. That was in 1988. I dated it, I put it, and I stuck it in my Bible, because by this time the flight's coming in now.
Yeah.
10 years later, right after that, things really started going crazy in my life. I really started finding out about family. I wanted to know about family, because my picture, the concept that I had of family didn't look like me. And so it didn't look like me and my kids, because now I was about to be shunned. I'm getting ready to be a single mama with some babies. And people are now thinking things about me or saying things about me. I'm being judged, and nobody knew my story. So I sell everything we've got, leave Avon Park, Florida, get on a Greyhound bus, me and two little boys, come to Nashville, Tennessee.
This vision has clearly set up where we're headed next, which is to talk about Family Affair Ministries. But we need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at some of those challenges you faced in trying to expand support for families. Stay with us.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr & Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com.
I'm Blake Farmer. and this is Nashville. We're on a journey. We're taking this journey with Pastor Glenda Sutton this hour. We've been walking in her shoes, mostly walking around Florida, though she did take us to Louisiana for a bit, and we were out in Italy for a time. But she is one of Nashville's on-the-ground community leaders. And we're just getting back to her story where we've left the air traffic control tower and this vision of what's to come and gotten on a Greyhound bus with your two sons, now a single mother, and headed toward Nashville. What was here?
Well, my ex-husband's family was here.
Oh.
And the ministry's family affair. So during the course of things, the thought of reconciliation comes because now I'm starting to read again. I'm starting to study again. And he's calling to check on the kids and everything. So my thought is, okay, there's an opportunity for reconciliation. I'm ready I'll forgive. I'll try again.
And you have the family thing on your mind.
Right.
Your mind is a whole familyness.
Right.
Bring it together.
So my thought is, okay, so maybe I need to do something else. Maybe we can do this. We can fix this. Maybe now he'll come and we'll walk together. Well, we get here and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because now I'm growing in my faith and I'm excited about serving the Lord and I'm exploring who I am and who I can be. And I try to share that with them. And I'm just really strange. So I'm really strange.
Well,
As a matter of fact,
you talk about this story, what they said you prayed too much or something.
That's absolutely right.
Well, okay.
That's absolutely right. And some of them said that I glowed and that I was just strange.
Meaning what?
Well, meaning that all I wanted to talk about was things that was good. I wanted to share what was going on in my heart. I wanted to share my faith, and they said I was over the top. You
just wouldn't shut up about this religion thing.
I did. Now here's the funny thing. They were religious. I talked about relationship, so I was in a different place. It wasn't a, hey, let's go to church all the time.
Well, that's much more threatening when you start to talk relationship.
That's it. And because I was beginning to see relationship, and I was beginning to see how relationship worked in family.
Yeah.
I began to see the whole of it.
You're saying they kind of rejected you to the point that you end up at the women's mission downtown with the boys.
Absolutely.
How did that occur?
I wasn't welcome in their home.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I was over the top.
Yeah.
And because I started to believe that what I was reading was really true. I began to believe that I could be better because the Word of God said I could be better. I began to believe that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Well, I began to believe that I could do whatever it was I was being called to do.
So you spent a few weeks at the women's mission. I guess
21 days.
21 days. And then you get a spot, I think, at the James Casey Homes in East Nashville.
21 days I was at the mission. Then I went back to Florida for a couple of weeks. Went back. Someone sent us a bus ticket.
I see.
We went back to Avon Park, Florida, just for a little while. And then I come back to Nashville. I'm still homeless. This time when I get back, the aunt of my ex-husband, who was a believer, she let me and the boys come and stay with her. So we stayed with her for 53 days in Hickman County.
Wow.
While we were there, my birthday, while we were there, May 13th in 1989, which was Mother's Day, I'll never forget it. I was praying, and I was talking to one of the cousins. I said, I'm going to Nashville, and I'm going to get a job, and we're going to get an apartment. And she laughed. She said, you're so sweet, but you're so funny. I said, no, I've been praying, and I believe God's going to open a door for me and my boys, because we don't have a place, right? And all we had was our clothes. We had 7 days worth of clothes. I had my Bible, my journal, and some little books and things for my kids. And so May 15th, on Monday, I was praying, and I told my cousin, the lady whose house we were at, she worked at Vanderbilt. She was leaving to go to work that morning. And she said, I'll see you this afternoon. I said, we probably won't be here. I said, I believe I'm going to Nashville today.
Wow.
She said, you don't have any transportation. You don't have any money. What are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I believe God's going to open a door. I believe I'm supposed to be in Nashville, and I believe I'm going to have an apartment. She laughed at me. She said, you are so sweet, and you are just so, she said, you just take this faith thing to another level. She left. And I went and I cried because she didn't believe me. And I cried, and I had told my little boys, Dee Dee and Shauna, so let's get your things together. I said, we're going to Nashville today. And my sons at this point are 8 and 2. And so we get our things together, and I go sit on the back porch in Hickman County in this little place called A Hole. It was one way in and one way out. We're sitting on her back porch, and we're singing my little boy's favorite song, Father Abraham had many sons. And we were singing and singing. Abraham had a bunch of sons. This gentleman pulls up in a canary yellow Cadillac, and he was looking for the lady whose home we were at. And I said, well, she's not here. She's gone to work. And he said, well, are you going somewhere? Now, I got my little suitcases, everything out there.
Waiting on a ride.
Absolutely. I said, I am. I said, I'm going to Nashville. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I had called James Casey Homes, and I'd spoken to the gentleman named Charles Crenshaw. I'd spoken to the manager there and told him that I needed a 2-bedroom apartment for me and my boys. He laughed at me. He said, that's not how it works. I said, no, I was praying. And I said, and I looked in the yellow pages. We used to have yellow pages. And I said, and I found James Casey Homes. And I said, I need an apartment for me and my boys. And at that point, Whirlpool, I think, was hiring. I said, I'm going to come to Nashville, go to Whirlpool, get a job, and I'll be able to pay. But I need an apartment. I know that's not how it works, but that's what I felt led to do. He said, ma'am, it doesn't work like that. I said, well, you know what? I believe you need Jesus as your senior partner. I believe God told me to call you. He laughed at me, and he said, there's a waiting list to get in public housing. He said, there's a process you need to go through. Have you applied? I said, I haven't. And he started laughing. He said, you know what? My maintenance guy just walked in. I need to talk to him. He said, but you call me back in 15 minutes. I got on my knees and I cried out to God. I said, Lord, they're laughing at me again. I believe you sent me to Nashville. I believe I'm supposed to be here. I believe I'm supposed to be there. And he's laughing at me. Lord, will you open the door for me and my boys? I don't know how you're going to do it, but will you do it to show them you're God? I called back in 13 minutes. He came to the phone. He said, is this Glenda Gleaves? I said, it is. He said, ma'am, I don't know who you are. He said, and I almost believe you know God. He said, but the head of the maintenance department just walked in and said, this is the first time we've ever had a 2-bedroom apartment and nobody on the waiting list for it. He said, I'm going to put you in that apartment just in case you know God.
Did the canary yellow Cadillac take you there?
Yes.
I hate to jump to the end of that story,
okay.
But if you're just joining us, we're on with Pastor Glenda Sutton for the hour, soaking up her wisdom and her stories and being entertained all the while. In all of this big lead up to the creation of Family Affair Ministries, which has become your life's work. I mean, even this vision that you have in the air traffic control tower, clearly you sort of put it into motion. So when you move into the James Casey Homes, obviously, kind of this miracle of its own, whether you think it was divine intervention or not, still a miracle. When do you realize that your work is actually right there around you?
The very next day.
Yeah.
I moved in James Casey home on my birthday, May 15th, 1989. And I began teaching my next door neighbors how to cook, how to budget. So going in Casey Homes, I ended up applying for welfare. I had food stamps and I got the AFDC check. I began teaching my neighbors how to budget a welfare check. Yeah. I began teaching my neighbors how to spend their food stamps and buy food. I began using my food stamps and I would feed the elderly. I'd fix meals for them. So I started doing in James Casey the things that I do now. I started teaching children to read. Me and my boys would teach the next door neighbors, would teach them to read. I would take my kids' clothes that were too small and I would give them to others. So we began, as I was seeking help for my family and for us, the things that were not readily available to me, I became. I had a lot of doors closed in my face, Blake. Everybody that I went to, and I would tell my story, I would say, this is what we're doing. When me and my kids needed things, there weren't always organizations there to help us. Or people judged me because they thought, well, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. And I would say, I'm doing the best I understand. I'm doing as best I can. Can you help me? And many times I didn't get help. Sometimes I did, but I believe that was part of the struggle, because, the butterfly doesn't become a butterfly unless he struggles to come out of the cocoon, right? I needed to see the rejection so I would be a welcome hand.
It was shaping you so you could serve these families in a way.
Yes.
Someone who had not experienced that.
Yes.
Never. I mean, what is it like? It's got to be a different message when you're teaching someone to budget their, SNAP benefits, food stamps,
right,
when you are on them yourself.
Yeah, and because I watched people not have enough.
Yeah.
And so now I told you in the beginning, I'm from Louisiana. I know how to cook red beans and rice and cornbread. So I know how to make $1 holler. And so, as a matter of fact, I called my little class how to make $1 holler.
She also knows branding, folks.
And I began to teach just simple things. Blake, many times families don't know how to do simple, practical things.
Yeah. And
I began to teach my neighbors how to do simple things. I began to teach mamas how not to, don't curse that baby. Here, let me teach you how to say something excellent. Speaks excellent things over their lives. Don't tell them you're never going to do anything. Began to encourage them and say, you know what, you are brilliant. You can do this. And you can get them to move a lot quicker with encouragement than you can with speaking destructive words over them.
Well, so when did you ever go and get a job outside of the Casey homes, or did you suddenly realize my work is here and we'll figure out how to pay for it at some point?
I did get a job outside of Casey homes. I went to work for UPS.
Really?
In customer service. Yeah, won awards for it.
I believe that. Well, so you're all around you. You're seeing there's just, I don't know what people call this, safety net, full family support. What's needed? Well, everything. So anything a family might provide. It seems like you were looking for ways to supply that. When did you see that this needs to kind of become more official and structured so it can grow?
Well, here's what happened. So I'm teaching. I'm doing what I'm doing. People start coming to volunteer. People start coming to help me. I would have parties in my front yard. I'd bring my blankets outside and lay them on the ground. And I'd bring kids on Saturday and have a party for them in my front yard. And people would come and they'd say, what are you doing? I said, we're having Sidewalk Sunday School. And I would have a little Bible story. I would make kids read. I would do story time. I do story time now. And then I would have the kids retell me the story. That's teaching them comprehension. And then I would give them books to read. I would collect books and give kids to read. I began to teach little boys, keep your pants up, and little girls, keep your dress down. And I began to teach them respect. Little boys would be running drugs on James Casey on my porch. And I would go out there and I'd pray. I would pray for them. And I would tell them, you don't have to do this. And began to show them something better. So I began to minister in my neighborhood. As I'm doing this, people began to come and volunteer and help. So our little 2 and 3 people became 30 and 40 people, kids. People started coming to help me do it. Kids started changing. I started being invited into the schools. Teachers were asking kids, what are you doing? You're coming back to school respectful. They say, we go to Miss Glenda's on Saturday. She has a party every Saturday for us. We did it every Saturday.
Sneaky church on Saturday.
I like that, sneaky church. We did that, yeah.
Well, so with then you become more official and start having kind of programs that are more organized than your front yard?
Blake asked me how I got on the radio.
Well, how did you get on the radio? Because this isn't your first time, we can tell. No, you had a radio program, I think it was called Family Affair, right?
It's a Family Affair for 7 years because of what was happening in my front yard.
Is that right?
One of the volunteers, some of the ladies who were my volunteers, some people came they were coming, they said, man, you're doing this, and kids are changing, and the schools were talking about what was going on. And a lady called me one day, and she wasn't intending to call me. She called my apartment. I'd just gotten a phone called my apartment, and she was looking for the Church of Salvation. She said, "Is this the Church of Salvation?" I said, "Well, no." I said, "Well, I'm part of the church, and I know about salvation, but I'm not the Church of Salvation." Young lady was getting ready to commit suicide. She called my apartment by mistake. She wasn't trying to call me. And I prayed for her. I talked to her. I just loved on her and told her how amazing she is. I'd never met her. A couple of weeks later, this woman called me back, and she said, "I told my boss about you." Well, obviously she didn't commit suicide. She said, "I told my boss about you, and my boss wants to meet you." I said, Who are you? Who is this?" And she said, "I'm the lady you prayed for." I said, "Okay." My boss is getting ready to open a Christian radio station, WNSG, 1240 on the AM dial. And I told him about you. She said, "I work for him." And I told him about what happened. And I told him she needs to be on the air. She encouraged me. She needs to encourage other people. So they invited me down in 1999, January, and invited me to come up to meet him. I'm there talking to him, and he said, "You know what? I heard about what happened." And after a few minutes, he said, "I really think," he said, "I like your voice. I really think we need to put you on the air. Okay, I'm going to give you a week of airtime, free airtime, just to see what you can do." And I'm sitting there. This other lady is there with me, and he gave me a 15-minute slot for 5 days a week. They were just getting started.
Yeah.
And he said, "So what's your program going to be?" I go, "What program?" He said, I'm going to give you 50 minutes. What are you going to do? What are we going to call it?" He said, "What's the name of your ministry?" I said, "Well, my flight plan?" I said, "Well, family affair." He said, "Well, how about it's a family affair?" I said, "Okay." I knew how to talk on a mic to pilots.
Well, yeah.
I knew how to do that. They had a little opening song. I had a little opening song. And I would say, "Let's dream." And I would dream of family. I just talked about family. I talked about encouraging families. Well, after the first week, they started getting calls in. One day, someone was listening to me on the air, a gentleman who one of the owners of First Cumberland Properties was listening.
Wow.
And heard me talking about community and families. I was invited to come to Berkshire. They were getting ready to purchase Berkshire. It was Panorama then. Mm-hmm. And he said, "I want you to come and bring I've heard about the things that you're doing in community. Will you come over here and do whatever it is you do?" I said, "I love my neighbors. That's all I do." We went there. They built me a family center.
I see.
My husband, by this time.
Are you saying that the radio program, It's a Family Affair, essentially spawned what would become a ministry called Family Affair?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I look forward to talking about that in our last segment, but we need to take one more quick break. When we come back, we'll hear about Pastor Sutton's work at Birchstone and now far beyond. Stay with us.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're spending the hour with Pastor Glenda Sutton. We've gotten the backstory for how her Family Affairs ministry came to be the centerpiece of supporting low-income families in East Nashville. She spent 2 decades based in the Berkshire Apartments, really providing anything that families needed. And then a few years ago, the owners of that property decided they wanted to do something else with it. Importantly, that was going to mean everyone had to move out. And this developer offered all the tenants new places in a new place they were building in Madison called Birchstone. These were Pastor Sutton's people, and her job was supporting them through this massive move. The move happened in February. It was not without delay and headaches, but as our managing editor, Tasha A.F. Limley, has reported on WPLN, people are generally pretty happy with their new accommodations. Pastor Sutton, you came here today straight from there. Are your folks settled?
They're getting settled, but there's still a settling process because a lot of the families, because it was new, one of the things that happened leaving the exodus you mentioned, as we were leaving Berkshire. Now, This was took about 5 years to happen. We spent 25 years in Berkshire. So after being invited,
these are the same people who invited you to
Yes.
start this ministry. The developer, the Cumberland Properties.
Yes, actually, this was the next generation. This is their children.
That's right.
That's right.
So in other words, when they offered to do this, see, I remember this happening, them proposing to move everybody, and I thought, a developer is proposing to move everybody? I had some questions, but I'm guessing if you had that kind of relationship with them, you knew they were good for their word.
I did, because I'd watched for 25 years. Listen, after them hearing me on the radio and meeting them, and them saying, come in and do what you do.
We think you're going to make this a better place. This is what? Is it Section 8 housing?
Yes.
Okay.
And when we went into Berkshire before we moved to Birchstone, there were gangs there.
Yeah.
There were all kinds of anything you could imagine was going on there. And we came in, we brought programs, we brought camp, we brought love, we brought in programs for grandmas who were raising their grandchildren. We came in, we did after school programs. We went into the schools as advocates. We came in to bring whatever the family needed. We didn't come in with a program, Blake. We came in to meet the families, and we built programs around the families.
Love the concept, but it seems like a challenging one. But I guess it only works because the people who invited you, and I assume they were helping fund you, support you, trusted you, and just said, meet the needs.
We didn't get our funding from them. In the midst of me doing the things on the ground in Casey with the kids, people who came alongside said, wait a minute, you're doing ministry. You need to become a 501c3. Michael W. Smith, his wife was one of the people who came to volunteer. And they invited me to their church to come and speak. They said, we love your story. Come and share. So I went to their little church in Franklin, and I shared my story. And they took up an offering and put an envelope in my little bag, and I had to leave because I had someplace else to go, right? I had an envelope in my satchel that had been there since I'd spoken at their church that had over $1,500 in it.
Yeah.
That was the money that paid for the 501c3 to get started in 2000.
Well, you all grew. Aside from being there on the premises, I guess at some point you all decided you needed your own space, and you started looking for buildings in East Nashville. And I guess you were looking at trying to buy a church that was for sale. Can you tell me that story?
I can. I wasn't looking for the church. The church found me.
I see.
Okay.
Well, that sounds like your life. I get that.
So the church was right down the street from the center.
Yeah.
We outgrew the center. We were doing so much. We were doing summer camp, after school programs, and we needed more space.
And this is what was the Riverside Baptist?
It was Riverside Baptist Church. And one of our partners was Second Harvest. John Betty, who was at Second Harvest, and we had partnered, did sidewalk. We did Kids Cafe together. We did a lot together. We fed families, so that's part of our mission. John called one day at our center at Berkshire, and he said, "Hey, this church down the street's for sale. You need to get that so you can make the camp bigger." And so the only reason we went to a church, Blake, is because we needed the space.
I see.
I never wanted a church.
You did.
I loved
You were
serving
kind
in
of a
the community.
church, but you didn't. But there was baggage with the building.
Right, and most of my congregation were children and grandmas, so they didn't have any money to give.
The tithing's not going great.
No.
Okay.
And we weren't looking for that. I was never in search of that. But there were people who came together, and they began to celebrate what we were doing. People literally came together and came up with the down payment for the church. Never did a fundraiser.
But I recall hearing that this didn't come quite so easily, that maybe they weren't even so sure they wanted to sell a woman pastor.
As a matter of fact, I'd been turned down several times. I would call to find out. At first, we wanted to see if we could just rent the space or lease it. And they said, absolutely not. They were going to sell it. It was up for sale. And I said, well, I want to come in and see it. Well, I'm a female. I'm a black female. And part of the story had been that blacks and whites weren't going to worship together there, and a female wasn't going to come in the pulpit.
At a Baptist church.
At a Baptist church.
Yeah.
A Southern Baptist church.
Right.
They wouldn't let us in to see this empty building. I asked one of my brothers in Christ, who was a white brother, Jim Bramlett, I said, Jim, will you call and ask him if you could see the church? And don't tell him that you know me. So he did. And the pastor said, oh, yes. On the day that it was scheduled to go and see it, we all met down at our center and we prayed. I took some oil, I anointed everybody's feet and their hands. I said, okay, when God opens the door, we're going to go in and we're going to say, Lord, thank you for the building. We did. So, and we're
as if they'd already sold it to you.
Absolutely. We're in our old van, and Brother Jim was driving. He gets out, and the van had tinted windows. We get out, and the pastor was standing there at the side door of the church, and he was so glad to see Brother Jim because I guess all the other offers had fallen through. And he said, Pastor, it's so good to meet you. And he said, oh, no, I'm not the pastor. Let me introduce you to my pastor. He came and opened the van, let me out. I get out of the van. You could have sold that brother for a penny and got some change. And we go and we walk in the door because he's standing there with the door open. And so all of us are getting out of the van. There were about 12 of us in his old church van. So he couldn't close the door on us now, and we're black and white. And after some months, God provided. Someone actually gave me a gift for Christmas of $120,000 because they heard how we were trying to get in this building and everything. And no banquet finances. Mm-hmm. We'd been turned down by 31 banks. No banquet finances because we didn't have giving units, and they weren't finna finance anything in East Nashville at that point. I woke my husband up one morning, my husband now, Dare, and I said, Dare, I heard God tell me to ask him for favor with a banker. He said, well, can you ask him so I can go back to sleep? So we did. I got up and I started praising God and praying. That afternoon, I got a call from a bank. It was South Trust Bank, a gentleman named Garen Moore, who knocked our file folder off of a desk when he passed by it. And the senior loan analyst, he said, who's Family Fair? The senior analyst told him, oh, don't worry about that. This is little church in East Nashville applying for some funding. We can't help them. They don't have any giving units. It's a female, and we're not doing anything in East Nashville. Garen Moore came to meet us. I told him what I wanted to do. I told him about the families. I took him into Berkshire. He saw what we were doing there. And he said, I never heard God speak to me, but I believe I'm supposed to help you.
Our time is short, and so we're going to end with this.
Okay.
But I'm thinking of people who are listening to you, so charmed. You're an amazing storyteller. Your life has touched so many people. No one can argue with what you've done and serving people. And yet, I'm hearing people listening to this conversation and thinking, God, sure, God did that, and God did this, and your prayer solved this, and the anointed oil, and they're just like, love the work. I'm not sure I can buy this whole thing that God is at work here. And I wonder how you work with those people.
I work with them all the time.
Right.
We walk all the time. When people ask me, I want to come and volunteer, and I get a lot of people who call me who aren't necessarily believers, and I say, don't come because you believe, come because you see. I said, just come walk with me. And I've had people come and just come hang out. And before the day's over, they're crying or something, and they're going, will you pray for me? I want to know you're a God. And I never, ever, Blake, I don't push religion. I am not a religious person. I think I say I'm probably the least religious person you'll ever want to know. I don't like religion. I love relationship. I have families, all of the young mamas, the young people, mamas who are at Birchstone, they come, they don't go to church, but they come and flood the family center. They say, Pastor Glenda, we just want to come and hang out here. Or will you help us? Will you help us find this or help us find that? We're a resource center. We teach people how to live. I heard somebody say, or I read something that says people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So the thing that I push is, let me teach you how to care for you. Let me show you I care for you. Let me help you. You need some diapers. Let me give you some diapers. Listen, don't ever try and get somebody, don't ever try and get somebody to eat the word and they're hungry. Let me feed you. Let me give you some food. And let me give you some food. And let me give you some food. And let me love you while I'm doing it.
You have fed us during this hour, so thank you for joining us. Glenda Sutton, founder and CEO of Family Affair Ministries, and many more stories to tell, but that's all we could do for today. Thank you for sharing with us.
Blake, thank you for listening.
Well, thanks for tuning in this hour. It's been a treat. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced and directed by Tasha A.F. Limley. Our technical director is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. Subscribe and keep up with every episode like this one. Conversation doesn't have to end here. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on the socials at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.